what would be one thing that you wish more people understood about Cool Mitts?
A couple people think like, oh, it's not hot out, I don't need it. Whenever we have hockey teams that use it. So, if you're generating heat, you're going to need it. People think that and it doesn't, I don't feel it right away. So it's not, it's not working. So if you're quantifying your workout, you'll see it right away. It's crazy that way. But if you're a worker and it will feel, you're not going to necessarily feel. You have to have some level of faith that it's working. The analogy I give people are two. One is like, you're supposed to hydrate. You don't necessarily feel like you're jumping out of the gym after you hydrate, right? It does feel a little bit better. It's not like you feel that much different, but you're going to benefit from it.
We are rocking and rolling. I am here with the founder, president of the Cool Mitts, Mr. Craig Gile. Craig, thank you for taking time out of your day to come on the show and
Pete,
tell everybody about the
appreciate
cool
you,
stuff you're doing.
Appreciate you having me and discussing what we're doing with Cool Mitt. Appreciate the opportunity.
We were back and forth in email, and I believe was it to you or somebody else who asked me who was coming on, or they saw the post and they messaged me. I thought it was to you, but it was with cold therapy, ice baths, and things of that nature being the forefront. But as I have known about your product for some time, as we were talking earlier, from the Huberman podcast and Dr. Heller was the first time I saw the commercial version of it and got on the website and like, wow, this is really great. But I thought it'd be very cool to have you on, not only to talk about the technology and how great of a product it is and the tremendous amount of benefits that athletes in general, and whether some people like it or not, golfers are considered athletes. They do play a sport. But in particular, the ability, and I'm going to get out of the way and let you talk about the technology and everything else and the muscular overheating and everything else. But the ability to train longer, more improved, et cetera. But I guess to where to begin before I get too far ahead of myself is to kind of ask you where the genesis of this was. What propelled you to come up with this idea?
Oh, that's a good question. And to be clear, I can't take a lot of credit for the idea because the brilliant scientists that I work with did it. But I came across it. I guess it is relevant to, much as I disdain talking about myself, I will give you my background, how I came across it. But it is a little bit of a function of my background. So I am a failed athlete. I'm not playing in the NBA right now. I wanted to play basketball. As a kid, the collegiate coaching fraternity had a different idea for me, it turns out, but the Navy actually gave me a scholarship to go to college. And ultimately I flew jets off an aircraft carrier for the Navy. And this is going to be relevant in a second again. So, then I got out of the Navy, went to business school, went to, Wall Street, for a while. And then getting down to this part of my career for the startup venture part, through my Navy network, I met the gentleman who had funded this technology originally for the military's deep R&D arm, which is called DARPA. Now, if you don't know what DARPA is, it stands for Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. Like everything in the military, there is an acronym. And so DARPA was originally stood up in the 1950s, like literally as a reaction to the Soviet Union beating us to space with Sputnik. And since then, its mandate has been to invest in revolutionary science and technology, first to win the Cold War, and then to keep the United States ahead of everyone else, since then, or I'm not sure what temperature war we're in these days, but, keep us ahead of everyone, science and technology. So, again, it's revolutionary science and technology. I knew about that when I was in the military. I did not really know the aim that they do actually have a stated aim to have the technology ideally have a, civilian technology purpose as well. So famously for DARPA, they funded what became, the original funders, what became the internet, GPS, robotics, email, even the mRNA vaccine were all originally DARPA projects. So I met Joe Belitsky, who was a program manager for 4 years at DARPA here in Florida. I'm in Orlando, Florida, as it happens. So Joe was in charge of what was called the Peak Soldier Performance Program. So ironically enough, Joe was a pacifist. So when they tried to recruit him away from NASA, he did not want to work on a program that would kill people. So they gave him a program where he can make the soldiers bigger, stronger, and faster and come home. And so one of the problems that they were trying to solve and that he invested in was soldiers working in extreme environments like Iraq. And so he put out what's called a broad agency announcements, a global scientific community. And what he ultimately invests in is this discovery at the aforementioned Dr. Heller at Stanford and his colleague Dennis Cron, that we as human beings have a particular part of our body that is most effective at radiating heat when you're overheated. And that part of the body is the soles of the feet, the palms of the hands, and the upper part of the face. The reason for that is it has a different arterial structure. So most of our body is really good at sensing heat and frankly, insulating us from cold because, generally speaking, we're in an environment, colder than our blood temperature is. But it's not super good at radiating heat and cooling your core temperature. Sweating is how you ultimately do it. It's not super effective. So Dr. Heller and Gran, ironically, as an outgrowth of studying bears coming out of hibernation, realized that we have these mammalian adaptations to our body where we radiate heat out of the hairless palms of hands, soles of feet. Again, like I said earlier, it's a different arterial structure. And I don't want to get too sciencey because I'm a layman's biologist at best, but basically it's a confluence of arteries and veins, but also importantly has what are called arterial venous anastomoses or AVAs. And so when you overheat, these AVAs open up to form a wider shunt. It's called vasodilation and allows for more rapid blood flow arteries to veins to the atlas.
Would the AVAs be a smaller, like a capillary instead of an artery or vein? Or
so they like bypass or like their conjunction is instead of capillaries. I mean,
okay,
this is the way I look at it. Capillaries, the way I understand, way that they made me understand it is the rest of your body has that capillary structure, and the capillaries are narrow and resistive, and only a fixed amount of blood flow can go through them. It doesn't vary at all. These, the glabrous part of the body is called. These things open up and have varying amounts of blood can flow through them. That's how your body radiates.
So that they can move blood faster or slower through the system based off the dilation of the wall.
Precisely. Yep.
Okay. Well, then that would make total sense. If they're trying to remove heat and they can open up more, then it's going to a lot of heat to escape faster. I would.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll preface all this with everything I say here with any data is there's data or science behind it. I will actually identify things that there's no, don't have actually data. So they discovered that this part of the body is at least 5 times as effective at radiating heat as the rest of your body. And so, they put their proposal to DARPA. We think we can build something to, solve this problem. They get $5 million from DARPA, and they create technology out of this discovery. So basically what it does is they create technology to kind of pull heat out of this part of the body. And typically the hands are the most available for most people. So, and I'll go through how they kind of stumbled upon the crazy athletic training benefits. So they get the over time, $5 million from DARPA. They have to prove they can cool somebody down with technology, and they build like a early kind of lab device out of it. But first step of that is getting someone overheated. So they had a PhD student in their lab who was a wrestler type of athlete, could do a lot of pull-ups. And so they have him do 10 sets of pull-ups to failure, 3-minute break in between. They have this very invasive tool to actually accurately measure core temperature, which is not that easy to get.
How long ago was this? Just to give some context.
15, 20 years ago.
Okay.
And so for what it's worth, I find this interesting. This tube, this device is like a tube goes up someone's nose, goes down and measures the temperature of the blood going back into your heart.
Wow. So sounds like a lot of fun.
They should get a Nobel Prize just for how many people that got to do this for all their published papers. Oof. It's crazy. But the theory behind that is not just because they're draconian. There's all sorts of different temperatures in your body as you have different demands on your blood. So their theory, if you're talking about core temperature, which is really kind of impacts your performance, goes all through your body, going back into the heart. That's the best dynamic measure of your core temperature. So as difficult as it is to get there, that's actually accurate. So they have this PhD student do these, pull-ups. They see his temperature rise. They put him on their early device. They see it come down. First set, he would do 20 some odd pull-ups. Last set, he'd plateau around 8. He cools once, unprompted, jumps back on the pull-up bar and does 18. So his 11th set is 18 pull-ups. And they're kind of a eureka moment, holy cow, what just happened there? So that sends them down a whole nother path of discovery. And again, this is revolutionary stuff as they're developing it. So no one really knew how much heat could limit performance. So what's happening there is if you're going to failure, excuse me, your localized muscles in that example are overheating. That heats up your pyruvate kinase. That sends a signal to your brain to stop sending ATP. Again, layman's sports science kinesiology. And so you go to failure. That's why you fail. Dr. Heller would claim that if you didn't have that mechanism, you could literally burn your muscles because the temperature can get really high.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can effectively get that heat out before your next set, you can then go do, it's almost like your first set. You can do a lot more volume of work. And so it's logical to one, but also proven in their papers. If you train like this over time, there's a metabolic adaptation to that increased work volume. We have these sustainable training gains. That makes sense?
It makes total sense.
And so you don't have to keep doing it. As long as you keep working out, you're going to have these gains. And you're not going to go to infinity pull-ups. At some point, your body does have a cap. We have seen people, plateau out, stop using it, and then kind of have further gains. But it's amazing, and it's a non-invasive way to accelerate what your body wants to naturally do and unlock your body's performance.
So you're basically biohacking your system.
Yeah.
While the biohack, Ben Greenfield comes to mind. I've read all his books and big fan of his podcasts to give, not that he needs it to give Ben a plug, but I mean, that's basically what he discusses in his expertise is what systems out there will make the body perform much better. The question that comes to my mind is when somebody trains, and I'll relate it to, as we're in the summer now and we're getting into warmer weather and people are hopefully looking for ways that they can train more and longer. And I'm sure this episode and your product is going to be very interesting to them. Was there anything that they found that the result of muscular soreness, so if they're older, the delayed onset muscle soreness, or if they're younger, the muscle soreness a day or two after, was that related to the overheating or was it related to the muscle breakdown and being used? And then the follow-up on that would be, did the cooling of the muscles, of course, it allowed them to train more, so they're doing more reps or more volume. And I would have to imagine stronger, but did that have a diminishing return at some point where their body just couldn't recover fast enough? Good
question. And before I address that, if it's okay, I'll go on. I talk about the strength training benefits and why that works biologically. There's also endurance training benefits, and it's a little bit different, but the same overall theme, heat being the issue. So if I'm conditioning, and I'm going to exhaustion, in that stage, it's not necessarily localized muscles overheating, it's your overall core temperature rising, right? And so it gets about 102, 102.5 Fahrenheit, you start to have performance degradation. So if you can forestall that happening, same thing, you can kind of just train harder for longer. So a good example to visualize it, in my view, is we have one like elite track cyclist who has used this like on a stationary bike, which you can, I'll talk about the device in a bit, but which you can on a stationary bike. And he had this one routine, power routine, where he would like go as hard as he could to set RPMs and wattage, and he would flame out like every time before 4 minutes. And he was able to kind of set the CoolMitt up on his stationary bike. And the first time he did it, he was able to go just shy of 6 minutes. So nearly a 50% gain of the first time he did it. What's happening there is like, normally he's like, his core temperature is rising, and he goes to the fail stop. When he's using CoolMitt, he's the whole time like pulling heat out of his body so he can kind of keep going. That's why you have these conditioning training gains as well. And very good question, from what you say on the DOMs and overtraining. So haven't had any, to be fair, so far we've been working with primarily pretty experienced elite athletes. So you haven't had any, they're savvy enough to not overdo it. Haven't had any reports of people, overtraining because of CoolMitt. We do have a lot through the years and a lot recently of, again, experienced conditioned athletes coming back to us and to Dr. Heller. Like, oh, it was great how much more work I was, more volume I could do in this workout, but I was fully expecting to pay for it in a day or two with DOMs. And I didn't have it. And so, as it happens, Dr. Heller is finishing up, he thinks this summer, a study kind of showing that and with a theory as to why it happens. And I don't want I would be definitely over my skis trying to explain biologically why that's happening. But we do get it over and over again. I think it's ultimately like because you're not overheating, you're getting less inflammation, and that's what causes the DOMS. And so that's what we've seen on the DOMS. Similar to that, and I know a lot of sports scientists and certainly people smarter than me are big into lactate and lactic acid buildup when you're working out. Similarly, he has a study that they're finishing this summer and put in to be published, essentially showing that, so when you have elevated lactic acid levels, it's just a biomarker of greater fatigue. And their theory was if you could do the same in a controlled environment, do the same level of work, cooling versus non-cooling, you'd have a lower lactic threshold to that. There go, less fatigue. And the data they have sustains that. So that's the other kind of thing that's going on. So again, give them credit. No one was quite as aware of what the limitations of heat.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day when I was a young athlete, it was, I played basketball in Florida. Suck it up, keep going, or, run till you puke and you'll be better tomorrow. Wasn't necessarily all the knowledge we have now across sports science, but in particular the heat. They've kind of unlocked this concept for people to see, exactly how to create peak performance.
God, knowing the mindset of golfers across the spectrum. So once people get the golf bug, as it's commonly referred to, let's just say we'll take 20 plus handicap all the way to Tour Pro, that they're notorious for practicing too much. Obviously the deep passion for the game contributes to that, but then they also pay the price later on. So I could just imagine once this catches on in the golf community, that people will be feeding that passion of beating balls for hours, knowing that they can just take breaks in between, put the Cool Mitts on, and not have the fatigue or the soreness next day.
I got feedback from data on that. And, full disclosure for this podcast, as an athlete, I told you how bad I was in basketball. I got good enough in tennis to realize how bad I am. I'm so bad in golf, I'm not even sure how bad I am. I'm not even smart enough to know how bad I am. But so we do have some PGA and LPGA golfers as customers. Got feedback from, frankly, the personal physical therapist of one of them, prominent PGA player, who has used this in training. And, in the strength training, he's certainly seen results in that. But also, he, they track everything, but he was tracking exit velocity on range sessions and cool in between. I'm not sure how many shots he would do before, but I do have similar data from baseball players of like 15 swings. So basically, they would normally have some degradation of that exit velocity later in the session, and did not have that versus when they cooled. So when they cooled,
wow,
they had like this consistent, they're much more finely tuned than me. I could be, velocity is not my problem. But they're able to kind of keep going a more productive range session, which obviously is what they're trying to do.
The common thought process for a very long time, when it came to, like, let's say heavier training. So somebody's going to do, they're doing 3 to 5 sets. I mean, I'm sorry, 3 to 5 reps.
Yep.
And the thought is you're going to take off minimum of 2 minutes up to 5 minutes between working that exercise again.
Right.
And it's not as much from the people I've had on the show and the studies, or not studies I've been in, but the studies I've read, going back to the Charles Poliquin days and some of the Russian models, was that it is much neural fatigue, that you have to let the neural system reset itself after you just put it through. You've peaked it out, or maybe hit 101, 103, 105% of its max. Is there does the cooling have an effect on the as the brain regulates the muscle to the temperature? Does it have some sort of effect? Have they found out on the brain's ability as you're developing movement patterns, and the brain is obviously the driver of that?
That is certainly not my area of expertise. I don't have a good answer for that. I have some theories. So one thing to point out, like I tell people, like, this is not like a magic mitt where you put your hand in and get magically stronger. You've got to get your body into a heat limited state where it's actually going to show the benefit. So I tell people, like, The reason I can't bench press 400 pounds is not because I'm, not because of heat, because I'm not strong enough, right? But the reason I can't, well, we got a number, do my 11th rep of 185, I've already proven I'm strong enough. Heat's the problem with that. So you got to get to a point where you're doing enough reps where heat's the issue. And that's why you get these benefits. On the neural part of it, I can't say for sure, although we do have working with a partner to do a strength study in New York, Dr. Brad Schoenfeld. And I'm not sure if the neural component is part of what they're doing. But one thing about the neural thing, it is, what I do know in terms of just heat mitigation overall, there's a big difference between feeling cool and actually addressing the problem and getting cooler. To be perfectly clear, you use the Cool Mitt, you're not going to get a breath of fresh air going through your body because it's actually getting the heat out of your body. You don't sense your core temperature. But when you have a misting fan or a cold towel in your neck, all that's doing really is making you feel cooler. And the way Dr. Heller tells it is you're kind of tricking your thermostat. So that's the neural part. So your brain is thinking that, you have less of a heat problem than you do. So some of those measures, we always tell people don't not do them. There's a benefit to feeling cooler, but don't expect it to really address your overheating problem. Getting the heat out of the body is what you really want to do. Obviously sweating does some of that, but we have shown that this is much more rapidly effective than that. And for what it's worth, people do see, and this is a good benefit for golfers in your neck of the woods and mine this time of year, substantially less sweating when you can use this throughout a round or throughout a athletic competition. So, and there's a benefit to that too.
Yeah, I wish I had it yesterday. And to speak to the body cooling down, I did my 40, 50 minute, 60-minute bike ride yesterday, and then had to go do some office work, and I get back and I'm running a little behind, so I jump in the shower and have it as cold as possible, thinking it's going to just cool me down enough. But 5-10 minutes after the shower, as I'm getting dressed and getting my stuff together, I'm still sweating.
Yeah.
The cold shower knocked it down for a few minutes, but then as soon as I got out of there, it was
again. So you're feeling cooler, but it's not doing really much to get the core temperature down.
To get your core temperature down.
Yeah, and so we have and people don't realize, because you can't really can measure it very accurately. You can't really feel it, but you can maintain a heat load in your body for a very long time, way longer than you think. That's why some people have if they do a late workout, have a problem going to sleep afterwards because they kind of maintain that heat, and heat is a deterrent to getting to sleep and getting to quality sleep. So we actually have a lot of folks who do, a lot of athletes that do use this for sleep reasons. To your story, one of our ambassadors is this remarkable young gentleman who's a triathlete. He's a bit of an underachiever. He's a pro triathlete and a medical student at Ohio State. His name is Matthew Marquardt, who actually just won a pro triathlon down in Australia. But so he has no time, no free time. He's either in med school or doing all this training for a triathlon. And he does get the benefits, particularly on the bike when he's training with it. But he'll use it after a workout, to your point, before he goes to the shower, because he has to get out of the shower and go to class. He doesn't want to be sweating. So it actually has been that issue for him. So if I'm thinking about, my schlubby golf day here in Orlando, Florida, and, the late round where I got, swamp shorts and the beers are not winning the day on that, being able to kind of reduce the sweat is, I think going to help my performance for one. But if anything, it helped my performance. But certainly make you feel better during the round and enjoy your round better.
Yeah. So before I send us off on a tangent, you were talking about how the focal points of the cooling mechanism of the body would be the hairless follicles. So the more or less the cheeks or under the eyes and the palms and the bottoms of the feet, and I think even the forehead. If I might have that
yes,
right.
This part of the face, for what it's worth, the face AVAs do prioritize blood flow to the brain. So it's a little bit less effective on the overall core temperature of basically your organs, but it does have that effect. So let me talk about the device a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, well, that was a question. Is I wanted to get an underlying science and how it works. That's what I was coming back to.
I'll talk to that. So again, so we took the most recent version out of Stanford's lab, created a manufacturable first version out of that, and that's what is now on the market. And we've had good traction with it. We have over 70 professional teams across all the major sports, dozens of college programs. So they have multiple sports there. Stanford University is probably our calling card program. They have like 14. I was there last week, but 14 different sports I know are using it regularly. Olympians, Tour de France teams, special forces, military, a lot of elite performers. So the device, and I'll tell you how it works, and I'll answer the questions that we always get. So it's about 1 foot high and 8 inches in diameter. It's portable and battery operated. So you can kind of carry it around, but you're not going to want to run with it, certainly. It weighs about 7 pounds.
You put it in a backpack.
Before you put ice in. I mean, some people do. I can tell you a track and field story in a second. But so the bottom chamber, it's like a vacuum sealed cooler type of thing, has ice and water in there. That does not flow through the system. That would be too cold. And I'll talk about that in a second. That's a heat sink. So the upper chamber has a closed loop of water. Water comes out of it at the ideal temperature. It's in the mid 50s. The reason for that is, and the first question I always get, like, all right, so the hands are where I want to radiate heat. I'll just put my hand in a bucket of ice. Wouldn't that be faster? Which is logical, right? The reality is the body doesn't work that way. So if it's too cold, the body actually has a defense mechanism against that called vasoconstriction.
Yeah, you're going to close it.
Perversely is maintaining heat in your body. So you don't want to do that. I'll tell you that. So this is above that range. And so the water comes out at that ideal temperature. You put your hand inside our mitt, but it's on top of this pad that has water flowing through it. And we kind of been dialed in from them at the flow rate and the pattern of the water to maximize the heat exchange. But what's happening, this is the important part, the heat's transferred from the blood in your hand to this water, and by convection, it takes it away. So it's not just as simple as getting your hand cold. You have to have the heat go somewhere. This is what happens. So heat flows out, goes back to that system. It gets re-chilled in that ice chamber, goes back to the system. This little device in there that regulates temperature coming out. So you have a constant flow of water going across your hand, pulling heat out, allowing colder blood to flow to your heart, and that cools you from the inside out. And again, it's that kind of begets the next question I always get, which is, and they generally phrase it this way, how long do I have to do this for it to work? And the answer is, it starts working right away. So if I'm overheated, put my hand in there, heat's going to start coming out right away. Helpfully, it's exponentially faster, the rate of heat transfer, the first minute, and then it starts to revert to the mean. We've seen in the lab in the field about the third or fourth minute. So first minute is your biggest bang for the buck. 3 minutes is a really good time to use it. There's no danger going too long, frankly. It's never going to get you too cold. All it's doing is getting heat out of your body when it needs to get out of your body. So it never gets you below your core temperature. So that's the way that it works. And again, this is through, now years and years of development and discovery by these brilliant Stanford scientists, kind of dialing in the best, methodology to get the heat out of your body. Again, it works on the feet too. We do have some combat athletes that use our current version, which is designed for the hand because most people have hands more available than the feet. But they can put their feet in it, and they're BJJ or UFC athletes in training have been seeing the results. Really, some really good stories out of that. So that's the basic biological physical mechanism by which it works. Convection pulling the heat out of your hand while allowing colder blood to flow to your heart, including from the inside out.
And the difference between that and as you mentioned, if it's a hot day and you're drinking cold beer, or you're drinking cold water, whatever you're drinking, because some people, I am sure, would think that drinking colder beverages is going to cool your system down, and others who might be smarter or think that they're smarter would say, well, if the blood flow runs through the digestive system, the stomach included, and you're putting cold beverages, and that's going to get cold through your body faster, when most likely the science doesn't back that up. But as you said already, it's the extraction of the heat in unison with the cooling, and not necessarily cold. I believe you said about 50 degrees.
Right.
Which for a lot of people is very cold. I remember when I started getting an ice bath, or it wasn't even an ice
it's
bath,
55, not 50, but it's cool, but
it's
not
cool. Yes, it's cool. Especially the first time you do that, then you get down colder, and then you start to understand the vasodilation as you start to get under 50 degrees, and things starts to get the gasp reflex.
Yep.
But what would be the difference, basically either the layman difference or the scientific difference between, say, drinking 6 cold beers during a round of golf and wearing the cool mitts? I know that's probably seems like a very dumb question, but I'm sure that, that a lot of people who are maybe being introduced to this for the first time are thinking, well, I could just drink my beer and I'm going to get the same effect, but they're not.
They're not. Again, I'm a engineering major in college and a finance major in business school, so I'm no biologist. So this is below layman's biology, and I have asked that question to Dr. Heller. Effectively, what's happening is that getting colder fluid in your stomach is not getting distributed to your bloodstream. It's kind of contained in your stomach. The beers have been shown to not help my golf game, to be clear. So, so this is like literally just getting the heat out of your body. So one thing people think they can do, and I'm not saying don't do it if you don't have CoolMitt, but you can put your hand on a can of Budweiser. It might be right temperature range, and it'll cool your palm. But as I mentioned earlier, it just conducts that heat, and then it's called the boundary layer that develops, and just stops transferring heat. So it's a short ephemeral benefit of getting cooler, but it's not really getting that heat out of your body. So that's why what they have devised is an actual way to get the heat out of your body and have that core temperature come down. We have an advisor on our team. His name is Dr. David Martin. He's wonderful. People have told me he might be the best sports scientist in the world. He ran the Australian Institute for Sport years ago before he got kind of recruited away by the 76ers. And now he's at this Silicon Valley outfit. But they used to do like the kind of ice chips as a pre-cooling before events. And they didn't find it to be, in fact, they actually found it to be counterproductive. And I'm not going to butcher his story of how the science of why it worked, but they found it counterproductive. And again, that's a different thing than what we're talking about. Pre-cooling before an elite athlete goes out, they warm up. That's Heller would say that's a bad phrase. You want your muscles to get loose, but not necessarily overheated. So a lot of athletes do is like they do that warm up. If they can, they use a CoolMitt right before while they're on a stationary bike and warm up. Sometimes get the heat out what they're doing. So muscles are loose, but their core temperature is lower, and they have this thermal reserve before they get to a heat limited state.
So yeah, so the thought process that anybody thought they could cheat your system and say, well, I'll just keep a bottle of water in the cooler on the golf cart, and every couple of holes I'll just sit there and hold it. That might, as you said, that might, using the can of Budweiser as an example, might help you feel cooler in your hands, but it's not going to pull heat or extract heat out of it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like a little bit of heat's going to be right when you touch it, it's going to be transferred, but it's not going to have a lasting effect.
Has there been I would have to assume that most of the athletes and the special forces, of course, are benefiting because they're spending time in warmer climates. But have you seen, has it been across the board increases in production and performance as far as training, or has there been certain sport specific or movement specific?
That's a good question.
Where it has been a benefit?
Yeah. So it's been, a lot of various stories that we get. So to recap, the athletic benefits are in strength training, endurance training or conditioning, and then delayed onset of fatigue. So the way that manifests itself, that you can quantify the first two, right? I do a benchmark, bench press test, or I do a benchmark cycling workout. I can quantify exactly how much better I'm doing. Delayed onset of fatigue, a little bit more difficult to gauge. Athletes attuned to their body, do know and can give us subjective feedback, and we can get some metrics through like catapults or even heart rate monitors. People can see like how the heart rate, for what it's worth, I think it's interesting for people to know. Your core temperature, just a few degrees in core temperature is where you're going to rise from normal to a problem. 102 is under degradation. 104 becomes a natural health problem. We can kind of like won't use the word prevent. We can mitigate. You get into that state, right? But even a small difference in that core temperature have a big difference on your performance. That's why the elite athletes that we work with see it's a big benefit. Later on, I get to kind of working with the general population in industrial settings and others. because this is a much bigger solution than just, having a NFL player do more bench press,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so, what you can do is get that delayed onset of fatigue. If you can like sequentially get that heat out of your body, instead of like your core temperature and heart rate going up like this, every time you can be at every 3 holes on a golf course, or every timeout in basketball, or every changeover in tennis, get a little bit of heat out at the end of that game match. Instead of being up here on your core temperature and heart rate, every time you get a little bit out, you're going to be down here. And so this is where I have anecdotal reports and not actual published studies. But if you are overheated, it's settled science that it's going to degrade your cognitive ability. So you're
that was going to be my next question. What's the cognitive result?
Yep. So there is that benefit. If you're an athlete, I'll use basketball example. If I'm at the end of a game, if I can do this, I'll be fresher, have more energy. And what my customers and colleagues point out is like, there's really nothing you can do. I'm going to say in the basketball game to give yourself more energy at the end, except for maybe some kind of sugar carb loading in a game. You're not sure when that's going to kick in.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of know it's going to come out, right when you do it, right? So at the end of the game, you have more energy for one, and you're also going to have, be making better decisions because you're not exhausted, right? So it manifests itself in that. There's some science behind it. We have a lot of anecdotal reports for what it's worth, and this actually is something for golf. When you're overheated, your fine motor skills will also degrade. So if you can prevent that from happening, you're going to have better control of your fine motors. We have seen that in sports like baseball. Pitchers report that to us. We even had it working with a crew in the oil patch, these mechanics in this crazy hot weather in the Permian Shale in Texas. And the guys came back, like, was using it during the day. It's like, hey, in the day, I was like, I had better control of my, my mechanical duties than I normally do. So that's that science working with that. It's like, getting that heat out of your body has the cognitive benefits as well as like the fine motor skill, maintenance.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's like, and just living here in Hilton Head area, playing golf in the winter, you could play all day long and you really don't feel like you wear out.
Right.
Summertime, you get done with 18 holes, you feel like you've been raked over the coals and beat up and hit by a truck. Yeah. It's like, God, I can't wait to get home. And then once you get in air conditioning, you don't want to get off the sofa. Regardless of age, and you're younger, of course, you have the energy, you can get off the sofa. As you get older, I'm not getting up.
Right.
No, thanks. As far as there has been in the golfing world, and I'm sure some of the past guests that will be on will probably message me or call me on this and say you're completely off. But I know that there has been discussion and even minor debate on golf as being an endurance sport or a power/speed sports. Power/speed more so in the last, let's say, the last 5-10 years has
right.
been the thing in golf. But where I'm going with that is, have you found out? Does the Cool Mitt benefit more the power athlete, more the endurance athlete, or have you found across the board it's been helping everybody?
I will say
equally?
On the strength side, the way I look at it, like the biggest benefits are less like intensity strength, although you get that benefit. It's more anaerobic endurance. So you have this kind of like, and I think is actually really good for golf, right? So you're able to maintain your power for longer by training like this and basically conditioning yourself to have that greater endurance.
It almost seems, and I want to touch on, you guys were at one of the the PGA Tour Championship.
Yep.
And it was, would we say it was tested or used or?
Yeah, I'll give you a story on that. So it was summer before last, actually. And the 2 weeks prior in Memphis, as Memphis will be, it was swampy hot. And Lucas Glover was leading that and was like, you could tell he was sweating by his khaki pants, put it that way.
Yes, he looked like somebody dumped a bucket on him.
Yes.
Nice bucket challenge.
I would have had to use a different word in my squadron days, but yes. Be more diplomatic. So I wasn't actually watching it, but my phone was blowing up because what he was trying to do, and they were showing it on, I guess it was CBS, he was putting his arms in the ice bucket and to try to cool himself off. Now, I think somehow I haven't talked to Lucas. love to. I think he found out about, the palms, weighted dump heat, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't realize the vasoconstriction component to it. And so it was a signature thing. It was all over TV, right? Guys were dropping like
Yeah, it's one
flies.
of the bigger events. It's a signature. Yeah, one of the big.
And so, lead up to the tour final. And so after that, I got connected to the folks at the PGA Tour in Ponte Vedra,
Mhm.
and got to the right people. To their credit, we briefed them up. They talked to my scientists. We gave them the brief on how this science would work. We could help them. They made a decision in 48 hours to let us support them. And so that the week of the tour championships, we were there on Monday and we're there all week. And we supported, the players and everyone inside the ropes on that. So the way that worked, and again, to their credit, they did a good job of educating the players. Because when I got into this, I happy to help for one, but it was a big effort for us. Obviously, I want to get some PR out of it. And there are restrictions on that because I'm a smart startup and I don't have the money that Coca-Cola has to blast
Exactly.
my logo everywhere. So the way that we decided to do it was there were Cool Mitts on the toolbox, on the tee box of every third hole. So 3, 6, 9, 12, and 18. And so they did a really good job, Karen and her crew, of really giving all the players the information. So going into it, I'm like, I hope like one player uses this and gives me some feedback, might get caught on TV. But they did a good job of educating all the players in their teams of what is going to be there, what it would do. We were able to be there on the practice range the first few days, talk to a lot of the players. So I was hoping one player would use it, give me feedback. In the end, we were kind of counting. We were deployed throughout the course. 13 of the 30 players used it throughout the 4 days of the tournament. Again, I was surprised that many used it because, they didn't know anything about it. They have their routines. There's only 30 players. They weren't backed up on the course, very much as a huge ticket, championship. Why mess with their success? But it was pretty, hopefully for me, it was hotter than hell in Atlanta. So they did actually use it. I did find, interestingly, that based upon their routines, the ones who were going to use it, they would use it if they were first off the tee box in that environment. They'd hit. If you watch another guy, they had time to cool, and they would cool, and they walked down the fairway. The guys who were second were concentrating on their shot. We're not going to, break up their normal routine for that.
Right.
Then they'd hit and they'd walk down the fairway. So really good success with that. For what it's worth, the caddies, a bunch of caddies got a great benefit from it. The security personnel wandering around in the, should say wandering, following them in between the ropes, and the cameramen who, maybe had the toughest job during the day in 100-degree heat in Atlanta, carrying a big old heavy camera. They had a good use case out of it. Interesting tidbit that I found, and I kind of knew it, but kind of resonated with me. So, me and my team were there kind of just managing the effort throughout the whole 4 days. And so we, managed a tee box. So I was at covering, I think it was 6 and 18. I forget what it was, but 2 tee boxes. And so, and they had it set up. There's a cooler area, and they had misting fans, and they had the Cool Mitts there. And so it's hot. I'm just standing there. I'm sweating. I went over to to manage my make sure my Cool Mitt was ready to go. Got in the misting fan, and it felt good. I'm like, oh, felt good. I took a step to the right. I'm still sweating, and I felt like hell. Right. So I'm like, all right. So that kind of like the thing I was saying earlier, like difference between feeling cool at the time and actually addressing the issue. So a pair came through. I went back up for myself, used the Cool Mitt for just like 2 minutes. Again, didn't feel as good as that cooling fan did. But I like walked away and I was like, I could feel that I'd addressed the heat. I wasn't sweating anymore. And actually had a lasting impact. I was there for, a few more minutes. I walked all the way to the 18th, where I was doing that one. And, I still wasn't sweating. Now it's hot. I ended up sweating again, but it's kind of showed detail to me, even though I knew all about this, like how much different it is actually feeling cool for a second and actually addressing the problem. You can have a lasting impact. And if you can't have this there available, you can do it throughout the day and kind of, fight the heat the entire time and kind of make yourself more comfortable, play better, and all that.
What was the next step, or did you have discussions with the PGA Tour after that to get the feedback either from the players or from them? And then has that discussion continued, or
It
was
has
that it?
continued. We have some good feedback. There's some, there are some logistical business hurdles to get over to have them. For what it's worth, our current form factor is, like I said, portable but not mobile. Is not the perfect form factor for that walking environment. The caddies, a player might make his caddy carry it around, but it's another extra 8 or 10 pounds with ice in it. They're not going to want to. They're going to be reluctant to do that. So that being said, it's easy to use if you have a golf cart. So for certainly me, I'm sure much of your viewership can use it for that. So I encourage them to at minimum tell their clubs to kind of reach out. We're working with a few clubs that are introducing it here in Orlando. So our current one, good use case for that. For what it's worth, the battery can go for 6 hours running continuously. You can turn it off and on. So turn it back on. It's not temperature right away. So you can basically run it all day on a battery charge, then overcharge it overnight or recharge it overnight. The ice can melt, but a golf cart has ice typically. So maybe change out the ice once in a round. But so that's where we are with our current product. And so our whole business strategy on focusing on the elite athletes, which we've had really good traction with, was to get it in their hands, literally, get data from them, get feedback, ideally, get some content and social proof out of them. But as importantly, here's what we're seeing, here's what we like to see out of the product going forward. And that has informed us for some new form factors that we have, late stage in the product development pipeline. One, frankly, is more for commercial users. It gets rid of the ice component. There's some trade-offs on that. It'd be really good for a gym, for what it's worth. And then what's I think is probably going to be really explosive product for the golf community is a mobile version that does require a little bit of ice, but you can kind of carry it around. I don't want to go too much into how we are consistent with the science to give up too many state secrets.
No, I don't want you. I won't even pry.
Just to be clear, everything that we do, we feel like we have, the virtue of the institutional knowledge of what works best in this realm because we have the Stanford scientists, as advisors. I talk to them every 2 weeks, if not more often. And so they have done this for years, and they've trialed and error different stuff, things that don't work as well or do work. So we've kind of dialed it in. We'll continue to dial it in better. But one thing early on that they had with early technology was they had a vacuum seal to the early devices. The thought behind that was that would facilitate vasodilation, and that would accelerate the heat.
So when you put your hand in the mitt, there's a vacuum seal. Is that in
their old mitt there was a vacuum seal?
Okay.
In our current mitt, there's not, and I'll tell you why. So they thought that vacuum seal was necessary to create the vasodilation to then have this heat transfer at the maximum rate. Subsequently, they found that when someone's overheated, they're vasodilated already. So you don't need that boost from the negative pressure.
You're not going to make it bigger.
What's that?
You're not going to make the arterial or the
right. It's not going to boost it more.
Yeah.
Is the way I understand it. And so because of that, it makes the device just a lot easier to use. The earlier versions they had, you had to kind of put your hand in this and seal it up, and it's difficult to get in and out. So we could have, this can be used. Well, think about a tennis player. They've got, 45 seconds, maybe a minute on the changeover. To do all that, every changeover is not super realistic. Here, they can just put their hand in it, and then it's good to go. The other thing about it is, and people ask it because it's logical, and this logic actually does work. If you can have two hands, that does double your surface area and will increase the rate of heat extraction. All our data is based upon one hand, but we do have data to show that it does not quite double the rate of heat transfer, but it does drastically increase it and close to that. And so we do have this mobile version I mentioned. We'll be able to have two hands, and future versions interface will be easier use of two hands. So we're continue to strive to perfect this. And I think I kind of alluded to it earlier. Heat is not just a problem for athletes. It's a problem for everybody at some point. People in Central Europe who there's no air conditioning and it's heat wave. People. It's horribly sad. People drop like flies. People. I think it's right now doing the Hajj in Saudi Arabia. It's hotter than than Hades there, and they're out there with no protection. So we are, our business plan is to start with the athletes and provide this performance benefit, and for elite athletes and regular athletes and anybody who's working out to be their best. Serious athletes like high school, travel, baseball, lacrosse, all those sports, soccer. But ultimately, we'll have form factors for also the safety and wellness component. And to that end, we're working with a goodly number now of corporations who are looking for a solution for their workers who work in hot environments, be it
the first one that comes to mind would be roofers.
Yep.
I would have to think that just the insurance companies, the roofers, and that are up. I mean, you're not going to get worse than sitting on top of a roof in the middle of the day, carrying black or brown or dark colored shingles, which are made out of more or less from materials that are going to basically attract the sun,
radiate heat,
and you're up there and you're working. It's not like you're just up there sitting down. It's hot enough, but you're actually physical labor. So I would think.
Yeah, sorry. The good thing about like that environment, or really any environment, because it starts working right away, and anytime you have like a regular hydration break, you can kind of like follow on the trails of what Gatorade has done to create the hydration protocol. If you have a hydration break, you can do this as well. You can do it at the same time. Put your hand in the CoolMitt, have your break, and you're going to get both benefits. I do tell people, I sincerely, not just me, as we used to say on Wall Street, talk in my own book. When I was a young athlete, Gatorade had been around for a while, and there was no freaking water breaks. You were soft if you needed a water break, both as an athlete or in the military. Like, suck it up, soldier. And now, my coach Lauderdale in high school would have been fired for not scheduling water breaks into our practice regime, right? So, and I can make an argument that this thermal regulation solution is more immediately impactful than hydration, and certainly it could be concurrent to that. So we see ourselves as becoming hopefully as part of the routine as your water break is.
The only issue I could see in the golfing world, and this is just because the golfing governing bodies seem to do things at times that they say in the protection of the game. I think it's just in what they like to see and what they don't like to see. But where I'm going with that is if in particular the pros, the tour pros, the women, the men, if they start to see that they're using these things and the scores are getting noticeably better from those athletes that choose to make this part of their program. My only question would be, and I'm curious if they have brought this up to you or this was in any discussions, if those were confidential, obviously you don't have to answer and I'm not going to push, but where would it fall in line of it's a part of their equipment? Because golfers are only allowed 14 clubs. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. At the tour level, they're allowed to have a caddy who is deemed part of if the caddy steps on the ball or touches the ball, is part of the player that it's a penalty. I would just be curious to find out where it would fall in the lines of equipment, because in other sports like basketball or tennis, you have a timeout. You're able to go to the sidelines. You can get your Gatorade or your Powerade or whatever they're drinking. You can utilize the trainers. If you twist something, you can get it worked on. But in golf, you're in the midst of the activity, even though you're walking or stopping for the entirety of the four plus hours that you're out there. And I just would hate to see that it really takes off in golf and then the governing bodies come in and say, that's really not allowed as a part of your equipment. And thus we're not going to allow it in the game of golf. As crazy as that sounds, I don't think it's out of the realm of the possibility of the people who are making those decisions. I would hate to see it, because as I think more about it, it's like, well, what's the difference between sticking from that standpoint, what's the difference between sticking a towel in a bucket of water and then putting it around your neck?
Right.
We now know that's not the case, as you've alluded to, and have discussed the science, but from a ruling body perspective, it's like, well, how is this any different? But I would have to imagine, the NBA finals is on, that some of the players or some of the teams have implemented the Cool Mitts in there, or as you mentioned, tennis. I would think, why wouldn't every tennis player, Djokovic, I can't even think of the kid that just won the
Carlos Alcaraz.
French, yeah, Alcaraz. That they wouldn't be using these things every single time that they have a break, television break, call a timeout,
Yep.
set change, etc. That it would only work to their benefit, especially for the duration that some of these 2-3+ hours that they're playing at a time would only make sense that they would be using those.
So, very good question, and I'll give you our experience on all that. So ultimately, this is a non-invasive system that has your body work better. I would say it's, if anybody wants to regulate it, they need to start regulating, presumably Gatorade or some kind of energy bar, right? Because you're trying to give your body a better energy in a very natural way.
Mm-hmm.
Mentioning what we're involved in, pretty much every pro sport. Have had no pushback. I'll get to golf in a second. No pushback on any of them, ironically, except for tennis. And it hasn't even been like for Well, I've had a few different. And tennis has. I'll be diplomatic. They have a pretty unique governing body structure.
Yeah, you could. That's a very good way to say
it. We did get okayed officially, and we were at one tournament last summer. As me again, I play tennis. I mentioned that I'm good enough to know how bad I am, but I do enjoy me some tennis. And you're right; it's a really good use case for tennis.
Mm-hmm.
The pushback was more like business than performance. So the one thing was like they want to make sure there wasn't a performance advantage for one player having it than the other. I'm like, all right, so give it to both of them, which we did in that one tournament. And then there's like, you're going to mess up all our sponsorships on the bench, and is it too much maintenance or whatever? So I think the mobile version that I have coming out is going to solve all those issues. They wanted us to pay a lot of sponsorship money to be involved because we
of course.
For what it's worth, I mean the PGA had the same issue. What we did with that was we had to cover up our logos on the devices that were there, and then they were great to work with. They did get CNN queued up to do a hit, and we had some good PR that they kind of generated for us.
Mm-hmm.
So tennis has been the one that's been that I've actually made the most effort to get traction with, and still in that process with different tournaments. And on the golf, like after the PGA Tour Championships, we went through the process through the USGA, and got a certificate. The technology.
Oh, good.
So
perfect.
So, and again, I don't know about what they would consider a piece of equipment or not. I mean, to me, they'd have to consider if the caddy is carrying a bottle of Gatorade, and this is a big, ultimately the mobile version will be the same thing. So.
Yes, I can only imagine, but the advancements in technology, that at some point that you guys are going to get it to where it is at the size of a smaller water bottle, and obviously the mitts would still be large enough to fit your hand in, but that even the hoses could be smaller, where a caddy can put it in their front bib, give it to the player, pop their hands in.
So this mobile version we have coming out is going to get rid of a lot. It's going to be a different way to do all that. So no tubes. It's like a unitary version, and then the size, the bigger the size, the longer it'll go on like one ice fill. So the trade-off on size and how long it'll provide the cooling. But as long as there's ice available, like at a golf course, if it's going to be designed to go for an hour on one ice fill. And once it's melted, you kind of dump it out and put more ice in. You got another hour, so it can just kind of go forever. So to your point, it's going to be not just for golf, but for anybody in a mobile area. It's going to provide that cooling at hand. You can kind of carry it around. So it's going to. We really think it's going to unlock this whole market for much. Price is going to be way down too. So unlock the market for people. And to be fair, this is one great thing about coming on something like this is probably one of my main missions is to create awareness of the benefits of this, because even people who some people I talk to, human nature. Some people are going to be cynical. I don't believe it. I don't work. It's a new category of a product. So with that creates like some challenges on education and awareness. Also creates opportunity because it's a new category that acts like every person. And so there's, some work to do on getting it ubiquitous. But to your point, we are working with a lot of professional tennis players. They've been using it in training, trying to get it to where they can use it. But tennis is a home run use case for this, because they by definition almost are working in the hot environment. They travel with the sun, they say.
Mm-hmm.
The French Open was 5.5 hours, just about, intense athletic in the heat. And they have a chance to stop every few minutes and, for a minute and a half to do this. So tennis is a really good use case. The golfers, it's a better use case than I would have thought. Like I said,
I could have told you that. I mean, years ago when I first saw it and had heard of it, I'm like, oh my God, where was this when I was chasing, playing professionally, and you're all through the South in particular in the summertime, you're like, my God, if I would have had that, how much different it could have been. Especially from somebody who grew up in the Northern Hemisphere. Even though I've been here 3 decades, you never fully adjust to 95 degrees and 90% humidity.
Yeah, and no matter how acclimated you are, you get overheated. Like my
Mm-hmm.
head on golf was like, if I'm I'm playing, and if I was doing this and I stumble upon a good shot on the 17th or 18th hole, I'm not going to give CoolMitt credit. I'm going to be like, oh, that was me, right? But that being said, the people who actually know how to golf are seeing the benefit of this, and they do see, they obviously know their bodies better, and they can actually feel the difference. Like, I just, like we said, at the end, you're better cognitively, better fine motor skills, less fatigued, and it's going to help you at the end of the game. And the round, even if you're in competition or if you're like a big bet with your buddies on the 18th hole.
We've covered pretty well the product and the features of it, but as far as the business and the benefits to athletes and non-athletes, daily workers, and where and how and why, but from a business standpoint, what were some of the challenges that had to be overcome from concept to implementation?
Good question. So it's a startup business. There are always challenges, and it's a hardware product. So there's some manufacturing and all that. So like I said, I founded it. I thought it was important to keep the founding scientists on board. That was great. Once we got some traction on the product and some indications of demand from some teams, brought on some of my friends from we went to business school together at Wharton years ago. So got them excited about the opportunity. So we're now a team of guys kind of pushing it forward. So the challenges have been, there was once we got a prototype of the first version, started trying to go to production, there was a supply chain crisis globally that kind of delayed things. As you said, we had really great exposure on a lot of our media, including on Dr. Huberman. If I could have, which has been great, if I could have scripted it, it would have been a little bit later when I had, product for the market.
Yes.
But there was that, it's the first product is more expensive than we want it to be. Can't really get around it. There's the prices we have to pay to get it going. Like I said, we do have lower price products coming on the horizon, and with scale, it'll come substantially down in price to be more ubiquitous. Big challenge, frankly, is again why this is so great. Get the word out there, let people know, because if I hadn't come across this, I would have never known about this science and how it came about. So we got to get the word out. We're working with the right people to kind of have the credible social proof, who can tell the story, and people can, I'm not an NFL football player, but I like to, go to the gym and work out. I see how this can work for me. So I can, get one unit, or, ultimately we'll have a number of the vision is to have this a cooling station in every fitness center. So you go to your LA Fitness, there should be a number of cooling stations in between sets. Like they go to water break, they can have their cooling break. Ultimately, I think there should be one of these strapped on every stationary bike in a gym, and kind of with tubes, and kind of just do it while you're doing it. So if I'm in my spin class and I'm really trying to go hard, I can go harder, get more fit, and either go longer or go harder for that same time period.
Well,
So,
I would think that if you could have it on, let's say you had it on every bike, stationary bike, that people, you could have the system on there and any hoses that would need to be attached, but then everyone had their own individual mitts. So, and then they could just plug in
yep,
because the, the, the cooling mist or the vapor or the water that's running through is not touching body parts. So it's, as people get, especially now that we're coming out of COVID, people are more prone to worry about germs. If
yep,
they have their own mitt, well, they don't have to worry about it because it's not touching them. It's going
yep.
through the
We do get
system.
that a lot, and the answer to that, for a unit being used by multiple people, you can wipe it down like you do any piece of gym equipment, like
Mm-hmm.
sanitary wipe is doing. And then like the black mitt, to be clear, like the black mitt, if you see it on our website, that is effectively there for structural integrity. Because what's actually happening is you're putting your hand on top of the pad that has the water flowing through it. So a lot of people can and do take the pad out, and they can kind of like do two hands with it. The reason the mitt is there is that you can kind of have your hand and kind of wave it around. It'll adhere the pad to
Mm-hmm.
your hand. And again, our future form factor will kind of get away from that dome and have a better, easier use for two hands.
What skepticism have you gotten from either coaches or athletes? And even if you have, and if you have, how did you overcome that?
Um, Good question. So, some of the pushback we've had, and so most of our traction to date has been through earned media and word of mouth. So, it hasn't been a lot of like outgoing sales calls. And so generally people are kind of know about the science, and they're receptive to it at minimum. Some of the pushback is, got to set, I have to charge it up, and got to be honest, sometimes I hear it, it's like from teams, like you have somebody that can do this, but it's like a bad excuse. But, it's got to be set up. I have to change out the ice. The tubes are too long sometimes, which they can be actually reduced, and some people do that. So, a lot of the pushback, I must say, everyone who's been able to use it, and use it in the appropriate manner, I can't think of one person who hasn't seen the benefit, to be perfectly
I
honest.
can't imagine that. And some of the benefits from the studies at Stanford, and even the latest one I heard, I thought it was on your website, the tight end from the San Francisco 49ers. Now,
Mhm.
some people will find that hard to believe. It's 700% increase in
Yeah, he was doing
output.
dips. He was doing dips over a period of time, number of sets. One other study they had, which is really telling in my view, it's also an NFL player doing 225 bench reps, and he was doing, I think it was three. I forget how many sets it was. To be honest, I should look it up. But he was doing a workout of to failure of sets of 225, and he started off the time frame. He could do like 50 reps in this workout, and then he cooled and went from like 50 to 60 over a period of 3 weeks. And then they had him stop cooling, do the same workout, and he plateaued. He didn't gain or lose, but he plateaus. So sustainable gains. And then they got him back on the CoolMitt for another three weeks. He went from 60 to like 69 or 70.
Mm.
So it showed like, this, pretty significant volumetric gain sustained, and then able to get more gains. Now he's not going to go to the zillion, but there is some level of the human body can't go anymore. But that's kind of how powerful it is from the training side. And so the other, some of the pushback we get, and a lot of it's more just human nature than the product. Skepticism. I get it. I think I told you earlier, like, when I first saw the results people had, I'm like, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think
Um,
even the Stanford study when Dr. Heller had it, and if I can find it, or if it's still available, I'll have the link in the summary of the show. But I think that was even pushing 176% increase across the board on average with the athletes at Stanford,
in a study,
uh,
yeah.
in their study,
And
which
these
is
weren't necessarily even athletes;
amazing.
these are like students, but
Hmm.
athletic students. So, yeah, and you know what, I will. Yeah, I'll embarrass myself with this story, because again, I was skeptical of myself of these gains I saw, And so, once I started, I did a workout on myself, and I'll be brief. But so I do, work out not particularly well, but I do push-ups, regularly. So I did a baseline day of push-ups. I did 6 sets. I didn't have to do that many, to be honest. And so the first set is where I did 43 push-ups. The first set, second set I did 21, and I plateaued at 14. I was not surprised at degradation in the second set. So I went to full failure. It's burning. 3-minute break in between, by the way. I was kind of surprised I plateaued as high as 14. For what it's worth, I did the 6 sets, cool for 3 minutes. Then I did a 7th set. I did like 24 after plateauing at 15. So I kind of saw the benefits. But I did feel, it's interesting how it works on your body. When I was cooling that first time, I still felt the burn in my muscles, and felt a little bit cooler. I mean, it felt like, you kind of feel a little bit of cold blood going up your arm. It's not super blatant. But I could tell when I started doing that 7th set on the first push-ups, I'm like, I'm going to go longer. And I did, went from 24. Came back 3 days later, did the same workout, same conditions, same time of day, whatever. And first set, because it's not, CoolMitt's not affecting it, did the same 44 push-ups. And then the second set, instead of 21, I did 34. And then I plateaued at 25 instead of 14. And so it was kind of the same feeling. I still felt like that burn of failure. But like every subsequent set, I could just tell I was going to go longer than I normally did. And, people said, oh, it's a placebo, whatever. I mean, if it's a placebo, God bless it. Right.
No kidding. So, it's almost like the fountain of youth, especially once you get older.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you kind of can limit the effects of aging by, or at least be more productive in your workouts to limit the effect of aging.
I could just imagine golfers like, oh man, I can go from hitting 100 to 200 balls a day to 400 balls a day, just because their visions are grander in their own brain, that just because they're going to hit more, they're going to get better. But living in mostly a retirement area, I can attest to being around 3 decades of people who retired and thought that if they play golf 4 days a week, their handicap would drop into single digits.
And
it went the other way, and now they hate golf and life. So it might give you the ability to hit more, but you better focus on quality.
I was going to say they shouldn't hit that many balls because of blisters, but for what it's worth, I know this is I come across like this is a magic elixir for everything. We do have baseball teams that will, pitchers can have an issue with blisters. And basically what happens is the sweat and the friction creates those blisters. So they actually use CoolMitt as part of their blister prevention protocol, just for that very purpose. So you can actually go and hit your 400 balls in the range with CoolMitt and not worry about blisters.
As far as technology and everything is on apps nowadays, it again, and not to pry into proprietary things that maybe you guys aren't ready to launch yet or have out yet or discuss. Do you see the technology and your product utilizing an app at some point where people can, I guess what I'm getting at is if there's an adaptation to the cooling system. So as people start around that 55, 50 degree mark, as they get better and better and more acclimated, does that have to come down to 50 to 45?
No, it doesn't work that way.
Okay.
Your body, the biology stays the same. On the product development side, we are one of the products we have, which is more call it premium version for the commercial market, is built as a platform to gather data from the hand and ultimately integrate with fitness apps, which I think will be pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's kind of where, you see some of the guys on tour and some of the girls wearing the Whoop. I don't know how many wear the Aura ring because that could affect their grip, but that's kind of where that in my own mind that came from, is how is your product being utilized with some of this technology?
Yeah. So, I mean, when they do that, they'll be able to see like their, the Whoop, or I do wear the Aura, but you can see a lower heart rate behavior. This will have an ability to kind of like Whoop has their strain index. What we're envisioning is having like a heat transfer index. We'll probably get a spiffier name than that, but where you can kind of say, oh, I did my workout on Tuesday and I dumped so much heat, my heat transfer index was like a 75, and on Thursday it was a 70 or something. So we think that'll be good, and people do like validation of their performance, so we do think that's going to be a big advancement for folks. And this will also have an indication as how long you've been on it when you're done. So it'd be kind of a smarter version of the technology than we currently have. To be clear, that at least as far as I can foresee, the mobile version we'll have, which is pretty simplistic and unitary, and just literally just takes ice and the device. It's going to be difficult to incorporate a lot of technology, a lot of user interaction technology in that, but there's a pathway we can get some more of that.
Has there been, it's revolves around recovery. Have you guys done any studies as far as people wearing them while they sleep to cool the body down?
Good question.
Because, like, if you take, for example, the 8 Sleep
Yep.
mattress cover that lowers body temperature and core temperature while you sleep. Have you guys done any testing on utilizing
We're
either with
trying
athletes in
to
general?
find a partner to do that now. So the difference from the way H Sleep does it and the way we do it, and for what it's worth, we have a lot of our customers do use this to aid their sleep. Baseball teams have weird schedules, circadian rhythms are all over the place. The Tour de France teams in these hot hotels in the central of France, unair conditioned, they fight over their Cool Mitt. You use it for 5-10 minutes before they go to sleep. So the current device, again, you're kind of attached to it. You're not going to sleep with it on unless you're super stationary sleeper. But it does show, and I just got a call 2 weeks ago with someone who has a particular medical condition that impacts her sleep, and she's used it and had huge benefits on that by just using it for 5 or 10 minutes before she goes to sleep. So there is that. We are trying to structure a good sleep study to show that, and then ultimately have better form factors for it to help people with sleep, because it's obviously a huge issue. Helpfully, Dr. Heller is on the National Sleep Council, so he knows the right people to kind of work with. We're trying to get the right study with the right product and the right people to do it. Separately, there has been some work done around menopause in women with hot flashes. That's a little bit different than what we're doing because, full disclosure, never had menopause or hot flashes, but it's a transitory heat spike, right? So it's going to go away eventually anyway. My going on a stationary bike, that's not a transitory heat. But if they can have it there, while I've seen anecdotal stories, and Heller does have some data that it does work. If it's there and available when you have the heat flash, hot flash, it'll mitigate it kind of right away. So we'd love to help, love to be the most popular man in America by providing that to all the women suffering from that.
Yeah, that would be great. Just again, as you get out of the sports realm into the general pop realm, the applications seem to be exponential.
Yeah, let me tell you on that. And stop me if I have too many stories for you. On the industrial side, we do have some really great partners. To your point, with like roofers, love to help them out. I think the reality is I think it's pretty bifurcated industry. I'm not sure there's a huge national roofer company for me to talk to. But love to get the word out and have any general contractors, whatever, come to us. One of our partners, and we have a PR release, so I can tell them. Ingalls Shipbuilding is in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and they have a huge complex. I think they're currently building 14 or 15 Navy ships, and that's like the triple Lindy of overheating. It's like the swamp. They're in PPE and they're in these unventilated compartments. The welders are generating heat, right? And so last year they incorporated CoolMitt, our current CoolMitt, in like their medical trailers. So they're going to see someone after they've shown signs of heat distress, and they get to that trailer. They same protocol year after year. So they shared some great stories with us, including some data. They did say that year over year, and I can't take complete credit. All this was like the big new thing they did. 36% fewer reportable heat related cases they had year over year just by incorporating this at the end of the line. So we're trying to work with them as with our future products, get it out forward deployed to where these guys and women are overheating. So get it to that welder.
Yeah, get it to them so they don't get to the heat exhaustion stage.
And so, their environment. So we're learning a lot from industry, like different environments, like how to get the right product to them, where and how they need it. Better ideas, their routines again, hopefully pretty much everyone's going to have some kind of hydration break so they can get it incorporated in that, have that big benefit. With the oil patch we work with, there's like intrinsically safe requirements, which makes sense because you don't want things to blow up. So we have to have intrinsically safe versions for them. So we're getting there. Again, it's a huge solution. A lot of folks are suffering from heat. So, I need to get that solution out to them.
Yeah, especially with everything as we get back to the sports world, everything's about more training. And now that there's an issue overtraining, but it's like, yeah, we're realizing we overheat now. Now we got to find ways to cool the body off. And obviously, right. This is a fantastic way to do it. Arguably the best that there is. Oh shit, I had a what your situation right now reminds me a little bit of is did you ever read or hear the book The Checklist Manifesto?
No.
That was written by was it I want to butcher his name, was it Ashwagandhi or Wagandhi, Indian doctor was tasked with coming up with, if you remember back, I think in the 80s that there were numerous cases of people going in for amputation and they would amputate the wrong arm or the left instead of the right and the right instead of the left. This. Yeah. So he was tasked with figuring out how to solve this problem because it was running rampant in the medical industry. And I think he was an amateur airline pilot or had license, and he started taking their checklists and he took it into operating rooms. One thing they found out on an offshoot somewhat was nurses were afraid to say anything to doctors because doctors had more or less a God complex, and right. They were allowed to speak up if they saw something happen. So basically, they created a checklist in the surgery room, and then they looked at all these industries that were doing these things, and they're having phenomenal success and growth, and that's where I see a correlation with you have this great product in a similar fashion to very successful industries or businesses had a checklist, and it was so. People couldn't believe that if you did these things, then you would get exponentially better.
Yeah, exponentially better results, right?
Yes, and then the results kept improving, and then they said, well, you did it in a very high-end hospital where they have all this money. So, okay, we'll go to the worst ghetto. I think they were in Baltimore, one of the worst ghettos that there was, and all these shootings, and they started implementing these things, and the rate of health and accidents was greatly diminished there too. It's like, doesn't matter. Money doesn't affect your ability to follow what you're supposed to do.
Well, yeah, you mentioned the aviation part. I was immediately where my head went because, just shy of 1,000 hours in the A6 Intruder. Mm-hmm. And, every single flight go through the same, even though it's been a zillion times, the same checklist, very disciplined way because, sometimes you don't do it. Someday you're going to die. Right. So, yes. It's important to have that discipline.
And it's like, if you want your hospital to be successful, like exponentially successful, do this simple thing. And it's like, if you want to play better, perform better, have your employees work better without physical exhaustion, the ability to hurt themselves on a dangerous job site, it's all these things. It's like, here's something that is extremely cost effective, going to increase production. If you're an athlete, you're going to train longer, train better, improve. It's just like such a no-brainer. And that's where I see the correlation between the two. That obviously had taken off, and that was 20 some years ago or longer. I hope it doesn't take you guys that long to go viral.
Well, get on this platform is going to accelerate it, Pete.
Yes.
Get the word out.
That's the hope.
Yeah. So, I will say, my ambitions are not timid on getting the solution out to folks. We have a lot of good partners that we work with, and we work with some really impressive people. As it happens, I found there's a correlation to how good teams athletes are, and then them finding us because they're looking for the edge for the athletic side. We have over like I said, 70 pro teams, but the baseball teams is the ones that are the top of the standings the last couple of years are the ones that are reaching out. They're doing it through their entire program. And so we got a lot of things to accomplish. It's a very small team now. We're getting ready to launch these two new products. So, we're trying to polish off the fundraising for that. But once we get that going, I literally think, the sky's the limit for this. Cause, like I said, it's not just athletes, not just golfers, but we can certainly help golfers. It's that, I can, literally touch nearly every person out there.
Yeah, and it makes a huge difference. It's not only the science, but it's common sense. And for anyone, again, we'll have a one-click link to your website. People will be able to see the results. And it's not just like these one-off N equals 1. It's like across the board, exponential 170+% improvements.
Yeah, published papers, peer reviewed.
Major improvements.
The whole, with literally like, Dr. Heller is a legend at Stanford University. Um, and so, and that's part of the thing. We've all, every time I turn on the TV, again, trying to be sold something that, there's trying to take my money. That's the American way, take my money. But, this, just has such a perfect pedigree of the science. Again, starting from a big problem DARPA is trying to solve for their military people. And they have, obviously a great pedigree of creating, transformative technology. And so it's, legit scientists with, I can't tell you how honored I am to work with these brilliant scientists as part of our team, and solving a big problem in a really unique, non-invasive, easy to incorporate way. It's not intrusive. It's not generally be incorporated in almost any routine you have. I always tell people, like, you don't have to do a separate Cool Mitt workout to do this. Just incorporate it in your normal workout. And you're going to get a benefit. You don't have to do the 3 minutes that we suggest. You can do it for a minute. You're going to get the benefit. So just,
well, if you're in the workout and you're taking 3 minutes between your sets, there you go.
Yeah. And some people, take a minute. Do it for a minute. Just have it there. And, it's easy enough to have there. And like I said, our current version is really delivering, the goods for our partners. And we kind of think it's the gold standard, for this. There are other, competitor products coming out there, that, we're aware of. And we also are, again, with the institutional knowledge that we have from Stanford, we kind of know some of the form factors that limit the effectiveness a little. I'll never, trash someone else's product, but, we kind of know some of the different design features that, we've tried, thought of them, or we chose not to do them, put it that way, for a reason. So, we're excited about the technology, and, building out this category is all good. So it's good to have other folks in the space.
As we're winding down, what would be one thing that you wish more people understood about Cool Mitts?
Couple people think like, oh, it's not hot out, I don't need it. Whenever we have hockey teams that use it, so if you're generating heat, you're going to need it. People think that and it doesn't. I don't feel it right away, so it's not working. So if you're quantifying your workout, you'll see it right away. It's crazy that way. But if you're a worker and it will feel, you're not going to necessarily feel. You have to have some level of faith that it's working. The analogy I give people are two. One is like, you're supposed to hydrate. You don't necessarily feel like you're jumping out of the gym after you hydrate, right? It does feel a little bit better. It's not like you feel that much different, but you're going to benefit from it. The other thing is people, have cholesterol problems. Feel that, but you take your medicine, ultimately you do feel better. So you got to have, some level of like faith in the science and what these folks have discovered. And so those are kind of the things I want to let, people know. Again, full disclosure, when I first heard about it, I was skeptical, like this can't be true to this magnitude. And then, have the benefit of learning more, for one, from the founding founders. And then now working with, now it's, I have a couple thousand customers, get like these great stories all the time. Sometimes they teach us stuff. Like we have one football program, college football program, and they use it. They're in the South, and they use it regularly, but they mandate their players that have ADHD and take medicines to use it like every break, because I didn't know this, and even Heller had never come across it. But the ADHD drugs elevate your temperature, and so it gives you less of a margin until you get to that ceiling of performance. So they mitigate that happening, so they can kind of manage their performance better. So we're learning a lot from different use cases from our customers, which is great.
That's awesome. I think we've covered just about everything that, we could go on and deep into the science rabbit holes forever, but,
I got better people to talk about the science than me. I got,
yes. So, I think at least we've introduced it to the golfing community. At least I hope so. And, people can, again, we have one-click links to your guys, all your social media.
Yeah, they can reach out. They can reach out to me directly, Craig@CoolMitt.com. I can, sell, or reply quickly, but not immediately. And we have a lot of information we can share, beyond what we have on the website, which I think is pretty instructive. You can only put so much on a website. But yeah, it's my mandate to execute this plan to get this solution out to as many folks as possible.
Where is if you would tell everybody the name of your website?
So it's CoolMitt.com. So CoolMitt.com. So 2 T's. And I'm Craig at CoolMitt.com.
And then Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, so we're annoyingly most of our activity is on Instagram. It's at Real CoolMitt. Annoyingly, there was a Russian squatter on the CoolMitt that when we first started. So we went with Real CoolMitt.
And are you speaking anywhere? You got anything that you'd like to tell anybody about, or anyone from the company is going to be speaking or lecturing or
right
TED
now?
Talks
Nothing on the hopper. Dr. Heller was just at a sleep conference. We no current engagements, but we're always happy to get out there and spread the word.
Yeah, and when you're going to do it, let us know. We'll push it out the best we can for. We don't have millions of followers by any means, but it's always nice to be able to help somebody out for coming on the show and
perfect.
Spreading information.
Really appreciate time, Pete. I love what you're doing. I saw like the library of folks you've had on this, and I'm honored to be part of that guest list.
It's been very fun, and we're coming up on 200 episodes. It's hard to believe it's been over 6 years now, but
wow.
One of the best parts is meeting the wide variety of different things that people do in and around golf. It's very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig. Hang out just a minute, everybody. Thanks for checking us out. We will see you all next time. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed it, you can find more information on today's episode and other topics at golf360.blog. There you'll find the show notes and links related to this episode, as well as any other episode that we've done so far to date. If you're interested in improving your game and would like to learn more from yours truly by taking a private lesson, a half-day or multi-day school, club or putter fitting, you can reach me through the blog site or by email, pete@golf360.blog. So some of you may be asking, what is the golf paradigm? All you have to do is click on the homepage while on my blog site to discover how you can start playing better than you ever thought possible. Or you can simply sign up again on the blog page for my instructional videos where I give regular tips on all areas of the game to include the swing, club design and fitting, health, fitness and nutrition, the mental aspects, and equally as important, the integration of all those things together. I'm also on social media, and you can find me at The Golf Paradigm. That's Paradigm, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, also under the same name, The Golf Paradigm. Facebook is usually the best way to reach me for questions and or comments, and I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say. This podcast is brought to you in part by Old South Golf Links. A short ride across a bridge from Hilton Head Island is one of the area's finest golf courses and a hidden treasure. Set up on towering pines and ancient oaks with sweeping marsh vistas, truly makes Old South Golf Links a one-of-a-kind golfing experience. The Clyde Johnson design was named one of the top 10 new public courses when it opened, and it also takes full advantage of the natural beauty of the Low Country. Old South is a fun and unique challenge for golfers of every skill level and a favorite of both locals and visitors. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular, you'll be treated and feel like family. From the bag drop to check-in at the fully stocked pro shop with both men's and women's apparel, to breakfast or lunch before or after your round, the staff is always ready and willing to help. Experience for yourself why Old South is one of the premier golf courses in the Hilton Head area and why it will quickly become a favorite of yours too. Visit them in person or online at www.oldsouthgolf.com, or to make it tee time, simply call the pro shop at 843-785-5353.